in Texas. Today we're talking about those tangible physical products that represent Web3 technologies. Joining me now is Ariel Seidman, CEO and co-founder of HiveMapper. We're going to be chatting about mapping for Web3. Ariel, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having us.
So mapping for Web3, why do we need maps in Web3? I'm just going to kick it off with that.
Okay. So look, I'll start from the perspective of maps, right? So today, obviously, every day, you and I and many businesses use things like Google Maps and other applications like that. The issue is that in many parts of the world, they're not very fresh maps, right? And so there's an opportunity here to really reduce the cost of mapping on a global scale to create higher quality and fresher maps. And so it's really simple the way it works. You buy a dash cam. I'll show it to you in a second.
Okay.
You buy a dash cam, you just install the dash cam in your car, it takes 25, 30 minutes, and then you just drive. And all of that imagery from the dash cam makes it up to HiveMapper. We take that imagery and we transform it into maps that then businesses and hopefully consumers one day will then use. And so here's the cool part, is by mapping and contributing to the map, you earn cryptocurrency, this honey token of ours, that effectively gives you ownership in this new global map that we're all collectively creating. And so here's the first version of the dash cam. And so it looks and smells like any other dash cam in the world. So you just put it right in front of, like if your rear view mirror is right here, you just put it right below your rear view mirror, you connect it, power it, and then you just drive. So you don't have to worry about like, what's it uploading, all this kind of other stuff. It takes care of all that stuff automatically.
How much does one of these cost?
So this one I think is about $500. There's a new version which is slightly more. I think it's about $550. We are currently manufacturing them. There's a lot of hardware partners that are interested in doing the same. So if you know about the Helium network as an example, there were many hardware partners that build Helium hotspots. Many of those hardware partners are saying, look, there's an opportunity here to also build HiveMapper dash cams, and we'd love to help build out so that we can really scale this on a global level. So today, most of the orders are coming from the US and Canada, UK, South Korea. But getting it into places like Africa and South America and Southeast Asia is really important, and really working with hardware partners to do that.
So if I pay $500 for one of these devices, I plop it in my car, how long is it going to take me to earn that value back in tokens?
Well, that's a hard question for anybody to answer correctly, to be really blunt about it. Look, from a legal perspective, we can't really talk about all prices and all that kind of stuff, so we don't really get involved in there.
It's not about that. It's more about, so maybe let me ask the question differently. What does the token grant me access to? What do I get as being part of the HiveMapper community?
Sure. So you can really think about it as like a mapping economy, right? You're effectively, like imagine if in the early days of Google Maps or Waze, there was an opportunity to actually own part of these maps, right? And many people contributed to these maps, right? And they did so freely. And so then when Waze ultimately exited for whatever it was, $1.2 billion, the Waze employees and the Waze investors made a lot of money, but all of those people who contributed all this data made nothing. And we think that's fundamentally wrong. And so really this is an opportunity from the ground up to create a new map and to build ownership in that map. And I think there's another aspect of it is like, people like building things, right? And so if you're just driving around, at the end of the day or the end of the week, you can actually see the map that you built and really celebrate your neighborhood, celebrate your city. And I think a lot of people take, pleasure in that, in addition to owning part of the map as well through the honey token.
As you're describing this, I think about the Web 2 version, the Google Maps cars with that like crazy camera on the top. And there was a lot of discussion about the data that they were collecting and people's privacy. You capture people's faces, you capture people's houses. How are you looking at protecting people's information that is captured by the device? Yeah,
this is a really important issue. I do not want to create a global surveillance system, right? And so we think about privacy from two different perspectives. From the perspective of people just walking around in their neighborhoods, or cars' license plates, so we blur all that information, right? So people come to us, businesses oftentimes come to us, say like, oh, we want to look for license plates. That's not us. Like, we will blur all the license plates, people's faces. But in addition to respecting people's privacy who are just walking around or driving around, we also respect the privacy of all those contributors. So they create when they sign up for HiveMapper, we don't know anything about them. Email address, address information, personal information, and we don't want to know anything about them. And then all the GPS information that's coming off this device is fully encrypted, so nobody can track them. So it's really both sides that you have to think about, not just one side or the other.
Yeah, that's really interesting. You mentioned earlier that the more remote areas that aren't covered by some of the Web 2 products are really important in your roadmap. How are you incentivizing people to use the device in some of those remote areas? Because it sounds like it could be a little expensive for people who live in areas like this.
Yes, it's a great question. So we definitely have to bring down the cost of this device, right? There's no question about that, right? Bring it down to like, look, in Brazil, an Uber driver on, monthly salaries like a couple $100s, right? $400, $500. So we got to bring the cost of this device down. That's one part. Also, what we're seeing is really interesting is entrepreneurs and investors are coming in saying, look, I'm going to buy 500 of these. I'm going to deploy them to Lagos, Nigeria, or to Sao Paulo, Brazil, because I have relationships there. I know that market. I will buy the device. And then I'll basically do a token splitting with a local driver. So it's great. The local driver gets a free dash cam, which is actually useful for their day-to-day business or driving an Uber or whatever it is. And they get a little bit of upside in some of these tokens, right? And they don't have to pay anything for it. So I think we're seeing a lot of that now, which is really exciting.
I really look forward. It really feels like you're paving the way, no pun intended, in Web3 mapping. For anyone who wants to learn more about the device, how can they do that?
Just go to HiveMapper.com. Check us out. There's a couple different devices. You can learn all about it. I will mention this is also open source, so other hardware manufacturers are free to kind of build on top of what we've built here so far.
Ariel, thank you so much for joining us on the show today.
Thank you.
There you have it, Web3 mapping. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, more things you can hold.